Hello, welcome to the self-learning platform by Dr. Sushma Singh. Today we start Unit 24, Culturalism. Let us start with multiculturalism, the concept. Most countries of the world today are internally plural. They have people of different religions, races, and cultures living within their boundaries. How can these diverse communities of the people be treated as equal within the framework of democracy? This is the question that multiculturalism poses and seeks to answer. Multiculturalism begins with the understanding that granting equal civil and political rights was an important achievement within democracy, but it has not adequately addressed the issue of discrimination in society. Marginalized cultural communities as minorities continue to be disadvantaged even within the democratic nation state. Culture based discrimination exists even in the most advanced liberal polities of the world, and it can not be redressed simply by giving identical rights to all persons as citizens. What we need instead are a set of special arrangements that enable minority cultures to survive and flourish in the public arena. Now let us discuss the ideal of non-discrimination. Multiculturalism aims to minimize discrimination of minority cultural communities and to promote the ideal of non-discrimination. Over the last 3 centuries or more, democratization has occurred by identifying sources of discrimination within the polity and finding ways to eliminate them. As countries became democratic, they set aside discrimination based upon religion, gender, caste, and race. Multiculturalism contributes to this ongoing project of democratization by pointing to a state of discrimination that had received little attention before, namely cultural identity. The recognition that cultural identities may also be a source of marginalization and that the actions of liberal state may disadvantage the members of minority communities is the singular contribution of multiculturalism to the discourse on democracy. More than any other strand of political theory, it is multiculturalism that has drawn our attention to the discrimination faced by vulnerable minority cultural communities within the state and shown us that pursuing the goal of non discrimination requires a radical reconsideration of the dominant tradition of liberal theory. Now, the next point is promoting cultural diversity. To counter existing pattern of cultural related discrimination in liberal democratic polities, multiculturalism recommends policies that enhance cultural diversity in society. Protecting and promoting cultural diversity is a primary value within multiculturalism, and it is strongly favored for the sake of minimizing minority discrimination and creating conditions in which minority cultures survive and flourish. Theorists of multiculturalism argue that the policies of liberal nation state disadvantage minority communities. They place external pressures upon the members of minority communities to assimilate into the culture of the majority. Policies aimed at promoting diversity are seen as ways of curbing the process of homogenization that is engendered by the nation state. Eliminating sources of minority discrimination is, however, only one of the reasons for valuing cultural diversity. And equally important concern is that the rich mosaic of polarity that marks our societies should survive. According to Charles Taylor, if we cannot contribute to our inheritance, we must at least ensure that the diversity that exists survives and does not perish. Within multiculturalism, this concern for the fate of diversity is supplemented by the belief that the presence of many different cultures enriches our lives and enables critical self understanding. It is argued that no culture can ever express the full range of human potentialities. Different cultures enable us to experience different ways of living and thinking, and this makes us aware that our cultural horizon is only one of the many that have given meaning to lives of countless men and women. This consciousness of the finitude of our existence promotes us to take a critical look at the beliefs and institutional structures of organization that we have inherited and perhaps accepted. Will Klimek suggests further that diverse cultures offer concrete alternatives since diverse cultures present diverse projects and systems of external and internal organization. They provide individuals with substantive options and choices that they may explore as they define what is good and desirable. For all these reasons, multiculturalists prize cultural diversity and consider it a deeply cherished value that must be protected and promoted in society. What needs perhaps to be underlined here is that the diversity that multiculturalism seeks to promote is that of cultures, while liberalism focuses on diversity of thought, belief, and perspective. Multiculturalism is concerned about the viability and status of diverse cultures and communities that are associated with them. Further, it is the fate of minority cultures that face external pressures to assimilate or disintegrate that multiculturalism is most concerned about. and by the attending to them, it aims to protect the diversity of cultures. Since the concern all along is for cultural diversity, it is the community rather than the individual that has merited greater attention within the framework of multiculturalism. Next point is multiculturalism, pluralism, and diversity. While arguing for cultural diversity, multiculturalism operates with the understanding that the cultural communities are not voluntary associations. In forming associations, people come together by their own volition to pursue a specific goal and interest. Cultural communities, by comparison, are groups in which people find themselves. That is, most of the time, people do make conscious choices. At least they do not choose cultural membership as we choose goods in the market. Further, and this is extremely important, a cultural community is defined by a shared language, history, economic, political, and social institutions. Cultures whose fate multiculturalism is concerned about are communities of this kind. They are characterized by common customs, institutions, and practices. Since each culture has its own distinct identity and practices, cultures are seen as incommensurable identities that cannot be judged in terms of values that mark another culture. They can only be known and understood in their own terms. That is, one culture may value technological advancement while the other may seek harmony with nature just because the latter does not value or pursue scientific advance as we know it. It does not imply that it is lagging behind. There is, in other words, no ground for assuming that the same values are either enriched in all cultures or that they must be considered worthwhile by all. Cultures must seen as being incommensurable or non-comparable. Informed with this perspective, multiculturalism is more than a statement of value pluralism. It does not merely suggest that different value systems exist in society and individuals may favor or commit themselves to any of them. Instead, multiculturalism argues that each culture incorporates a distinct value different from that which is expressed in another culture. Further, the life of an individual is shaped to a considerable extent by the value framework of the culture to which he belongs. The customs and institutionalized processes of that culture structure his preferences and judgments. What multiculturalism tries then to protect is the cultural context of experience. Its policies are aimed at ensuring that minority cultures, their language, customs, and institutions survive and are treated as equals in the public domain. The element that needs to be emphasized here is that the mere presence of different religions, races, and languages is not enough for a multicultural democracy. The latter requires that each of these cultural communities flourish and receive equal treatment. It is this concern for equality between diverse cultures and communities that is distinctive of multiculturalism, and it is this that sets it apart from the assertion of pluralism. Theorists of multiculturalism argue that a plural society requires a multicultural policy framework of democracy, but this is at the level of an imperative. In actuality, plural society may not always head in that direction. Pluralism at the societal plane must coexist with a state that is monocultural, affirming only the culture of the dominant community. Multiculturalism points to just this predicament and shows that many liberal democracies that tolerate differences in society nevertheless discriminate against minority cultures. It is to rectify such patterns of disadvantage and cultural discrimination that multiculturalism advocates policies that promote diversity and heterogeneity in the public domain. Now we want to wind up this lecture. Thank you so much for your attention.